So today I could just easily continue to remember Srila Prabhupada by having a few detailed looks into the Yasa Puja book of this year. Yasa Puja books are actually quite pleasant to read most of the time. As it was established a rule that nobody who attempts to praise Srila Prabhupada should actually include a list of complaints and some dissatisfactions regarding ISKCON, other devotees. On that occasion it really doesn't have any place. This is no need. It is strictly concerning praising Srila Prabhupada as the person, as the Acharya, as the Guru. Of course, naturally, there are concerns coming because actually being Srila Prabhupada's follower means to be concerned. That's actually a sign of being serious follower. You are concerned, like Prabhupada's disciples, some of them had the opportunity to be concerned directly with Srila Prabhupada's well-being, with his health and with his diet, and that's called Vapu, personal service. They could do that. Most of his disciples couldn't do that. So, in the same way, as is non-different from the spiritual master, is non-different from his instruction, Vani. So the care of the instruction is in the same level, like taking care of his body and taking care of his necessities. So it's in the same level. So this offerings from the disciples, from any devotee who is concerned and considers himself to be part of Srila Prabhupada's movement, of course these offerings reflect a concern about the mission and the instruction Srila Prabhupada gave. I could just start with Badrinarayan Prabhu offering. Badrinarayan, I never had personal association with him much, but he was once upon a time very prominent devotee in ISKCON, especially in charge not only with managerial responsibilities but also with specifically book production, book publication of Srila Prabhupada's books. So, sitting down and thinking what to say to Prabhupada in these few words once a year is usually not an easy task, because so many things come to mind, so many things also reviewing one's own personal situation, seeing one's personal status in the frame of Srila Prabhupada's mission. Certainly, the question arises, what have I done? What could be more done? And what is my situation in Srila Prabhupada's mission? So Badrinarayan actually is just simply meditating. You could say allegorically imagining a few scenes with Srila Prabhupada being present. However, these scenes, actually some of them really happened. So it's not like he's just dreaming. But these scenes are kind of allegorically illustrating his concern about Srila Prabhupada's mission. As I sat down to write this offering, a series of scenes of Srila Prabhupada came to my mind. What follows is my attempt to string those remembrances and their purport together. The first scene is a peaceful, rural Vrindavan of the early 60s. We see Srila Prabhupada sitting alone in his small rooms at the Radha temple. He is looking out of the window at the samadhi of Srila Rupa Goswami and deeply meditating on the order of his Guru. Go to the West, it will be good for you and good for others. By this point in time, his spiritual master's mission had imploded due to infighting and neglect of Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur's order. Srila Prabhupada is elderly, apparently impoverished, and not in the best health. However, Continually weighing on him is his Guru Maharaj's order to leave the sheltering embrace of Vrindavan, make the difficult traverse across the ocean and arrive in an unfamiliar and probably unwelcoming land, to present a message that by all indications the local population would not want to hear. And yet, against all odds, he is determined to do it. Srila Prabhupada has prepared as best he can by completing his 3-volume set of the first canto of Srimad Bhagavatam. He has found a sponsor, has arranged a free passage to the USA, and has a visa and his P form in hand, means visa form. Srila Prabhupada's calculation is that the foreign land, if necessary, he could survive on oats and potatoes. Prabhupada was actually thinking, what do they eat there in America? Because he was thinking they just eat only meat. So, so he said, I will just try to survive on oats and potatoes. Let me starve, but he must attempt to fulfill the order of his Guru Maharaj. Who can estimate the commitment and compassion of such a person? Others may say, we could have gone, but they didn't. The Vanara chiefs sat on the shore, ruling that they also could have jumped to Lanka, but only Hanuman did it. That's from the Ramayana. Certifying forever that he was the best servant of Lord Ram. In composing his own Prana mantra, Srila Prabhupada chose as his distinguishing characteristic that he was first and foremost the surrendered servant of Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur. In his purport to Bhagavad Gita, Srila Prabhupada reveals that this fixed determination to execute the order of one spiritual master is the secret of spiritual success. The next scene that comes to me is of Srila Prabhupada in New York City, 1966. He is giving class at the 22nd Avenue in the sweltering summer heat. You hear dogs barking, trucks rumbling by, and boisterous children determined to play right outside. I just heard that yesterday. It's hilarious. Prabhupada is struggling like anything against the sound of the street. He asks even the few people sitting there, that was before ISKCON was even started. He's asking them, can you please take care of the kids? Why are they playing right away here in front of the window? And the kids are loud and the trucks are rumbling and Prabhupada is struggling with his voice against this Kali Yuga sounds. Over this irreverent cacophony, we hear Srila Prabhupada, his voice sometimes cracking with feeling, as he alternatively speaks forcefully and then pleadingly. His small audience consists of fledgling newcomers, barely in the house of Bhakti, and elected seekers who have come to check out the Swami. Charmingly and convincingly, Srila Prabhupada presents, this Prabhupada talking, the whole point of Krishna, as speaking the Bhagavad Gita, was to turn Arjuna from a no man to a yes man. At the beginning of the Gita, Arjuna was saying, no, I will not fight. At the end of the Gita, Arjuna is saying, yes, I am now prepared to carry out your order. When you study Srila Prabhupada's lecture more carefully, you will see how his voice is changing. At that time, 1966, Prabhupada sounds quite Indian, quite kind of, you could say innocent, and very, as is described here, rightly observed, sometimes forceful, but mostly pleading. Please, hear kindly. He has said it quite often. Hear kindly. Later on, when the movement grew, Srila Prabhupada's voice is growing in force. Then I didn't remember, he said too many times, please hear kindly. He said, you listen, you rascal. That word rascal came up. That didn't come up at that time. It's quite interesting that Prabhupada's voice and his whole approach became more and more forceful. Later on that year, during one of the worst New York winters on record, Srila Prabhupada, indifferent to the fierce cold due to absorption in fulfilling his Guru Maharaj's order, explains that Mahatma means one whose heart is expanded. Means actually he's not selfish. The opposite word is vidurama, just a miserly person who always thinks about how to benefit himself and how to arrange for his own well-being. But he's not concerned actually to give anything to others. If compassion is the essence of a Vaishnava, the true measure of a Mahatma, then who could doubt that Srila Prabhupada was the exemplar par excellence? During his last tour of the USA, as his health was failing and devotees were begging him to stop traveling and to rest, Srila Prabhupada responded, "It is glorious if a soldier dies on the battlefield. I want the benediction to fight like Arjuna until my last breath." There's a famous scene from that time where ISKCON had a whole skyscraper in New York. And Prabhupada was in an elevator. He was on the top floor, all the way up. And he was going down with the elevator, but he was so sick. He was shaking with fever. And of course, the devotees surrounding him said, "This is ridiculous. Prabhupada, you cannot leave." He was actually departing on a preaching tour, worldwide preaching tour. He said, "Prabhupada, you can hardly get out of the elevator." And Prabhupada was really his body was shaking. So when the devotee went to push the top button again to send the elevator up again and reverse the whole trip, Prabhupada stopped him. And they had two sannyasis had to support him when the door went open. And he exited that elevator and he said, "Yes, I want to die on the battlefield like Arjuna did." And then, as Prabhupada traveled sometimes very mysteriously, he became better. It was completely against all material calculations because Prabhupada never contacted a doctor or something like that. Now the scene shifts to the March 1973, and I'm in Mayapur walking alone through the temple and ashrama compound at Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur's house. The place exists still. The place has the feel of being frozen in time. I'm free to explore as I like, and pushing open a door, I found one of the Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur's famous presses. Bhaktisiddhanta Maharaj was so stressing book production and book distribution that in every temple there was a printing press. And these old printing presses, they were pretty loud. It was not this kind of digital today, anyway, printing press is loud. But this really heavy machines, sometimes they were standing behind the altar. The pujaris and anybody, the Indians visiting were saying, "What is this? Is this a printing shop or an altar or a temple room? What is this?" They could hear this printing machine going. And Bhaktisiddhanta said, "This is same like theater. Deities like it." Actually, ironically, the deities where the printing machine was installed next to them were called Sri Sri Gandharaka Giridhari. And that's actually the name of the deities in Stockholm, where the Bhaktivedanta book trust is located. So the connection is still there. But here, the scene is dismayingly different. This press has been abandoned. It is covered with spider webs. The trays for holding the block type are cast here and there. Laundry is hanging over the press frame to dry. How could things have come to this point? The scene serves as a cautionary tale. But by the grace of God, go we, unless we are sobered by this history. That means, if we are not careful, we will share the same fate. In answer to how this could happen, I am carried to Srila Prabhupada's visit to New Vrindavan in summer 1974. He is sitting outside for an intimate evening darshan. One devotee begins to make the case that he was young and full of new enthusiasm when he took his initiation vows. He said that now it is several years later and he is realizing how hard it is to maintain them. Even before this devotee can present the rest of his case, Srila Prabhupada slams his hand down on the table in front of him and demands, "Then why did you promise? Only an animal cannot keep its promise." Srila Prabhupada is amplifying the threat running through his own life. Our success depends on unflinching loyalty and faith in the instruction of the spiritual master. My last scene takes place in Detroit in June 1976. When asked during a darshan about the extent of the spiritual master's mercy, Srila Prabhupada warned, "I will forgive you once. I will forgive you twice. The third time, I take off my shoe." It's beating you with a shoe. A devotee responded, "But I thought that the spiritual master was unlimitedly merciful." Prabhupada replied, "Yes, but do not take advantage." Great acharyas can be soft as a rose and hard as a thunderbolt. Manifesting the thunderbolt mood, Srila Prabhupada went on to say, "As Lord Ram conquered Lanka with monkey soldiers, I am working with monkey disciples." We were stunned, but had to admit that this frank analysis of our actual position. To elaborate, Srila Prabhupada said, "I have created the structure. All you have to do is go and decorate it." Knowing us and our propensity to charge off in the wrong direction, he then added, "Actually, I have also created the decorations. All you have to do is go and hang them." It's like, palakvi. It's all supplied, the palakvi and the decoration. The only thing you have to go and decorate. The first day you sat down on the Vyasasana in Detroit to give class, you looked out at the audience. It was a colorful mix of hippies, college students, Indian families, professors, inner city street kids, a vast montage of humankind. In the soft as a rose mood, we could hear via the microphone as you chattered to yourself and said, "Krishna's lotus feet, they are big enough for everyone." Once in India, a man was calling out to you as you were leaving a program, "Save me, save me." You turned to him and said, "Yes, I can save you, but you must do the work." When someone has fallen into a deep, dry well, there is no way they are going to get out unless someone else lowers them a rope. But even lowering the rope is not sufficient. The person has to grab it and hold on tight. Then he or she can be pulled out. To get out of this material world and come back to Krishna's lotus feet, we need to hold on tightly to the rope of your instructions, your standards, and your vision for how to spread the mercy of Lord Chaitanya's mission. That fidelity will be the secret to our success. Considering all the above, may I always hold fast to the rope of your mercy, as you have so carefully crafted it via your instructions. May I be of some small use to you as one of your monkey soldiers. That's a genuine prayer of anybody who follows Srila Prabhupada. So it is not about some esoteric exploration of some far-out excursion of another kind. Once your world is full of people who want to see something new, something far out. People may perceive Krishna consciousness like this in a preliminary stage. We are far out. You get things to hear you never got to hear. You can see things a way you never saw before. So with this kind of keen esoteric interest people may approach. But actually the whole thing is about something else. The whole thing is just to become connected to Srila Prabhupada's instruction and become a tool. Prabhupada said a tool means a tool. This is a very heavy example because tool has no will on its own. The hammer doesn't run away. The saw doesn't run away. The nails are not jumping around. They're just ready to be used for certain purpose. This is of course very heavy for our false ego. Even the fear is there. If I become a tool, then what happens to me? My will, my desire to express myself, all this, what happens? Well, the secret is, this is revealed to everybody who actually tries to go in this direction. But by surrendering to the mission of Spiritual Master, you will find your place. You will find your way to express yourself. Far greater field, as if you would be swimming amongst the conditioned souls, struggling for dominance. That's what people do all the time. Everybody wants to be something special. achieve something special. But it's a festival of mediocrity we see out there, where people are basically controlled by material nature, and by more clever ones, they control the more stupid ones. That's all. That's how this world works. As Prabhupada once, I don't know why, devotees took him to the zoo, and then when they came out of the zoo, Prabhupada said, "So what did we learn today?" Devotees were like, "Wow, yeah, we saw dolphins and we saw bears," and and Prabhupada said, "That's not what I mean." Prabhupada said, "What we learned today is that everybody is controlled by superior intelligence. Because all these animals are far more powerful and ferocious as a human being. So this whole zoo is completely controlled by humans. Because they have a higher intelligence, they arrange that these animals will be encaged and serve them, in one sense, as exhibition pieces or whatever. It's like when you take the example of a horse. A horse is totally equipped to kill you. They do occasionally. It can kick you with such a force. It can run so fast that you cannot hold on it. When it wants to run away, it will run away. That's it, you can't stop a horse. It's such a power, man. A personal experience with a small horse, a pony, which is the size almost of a big dog. But there's such a power in it, when the horse wants to run, nobody can stop it. And when it kicks you, it really hurts. It can bite you too. But still, when the human is there, a little human, and sits on a horse, it can control it perfectly. Somehow the horse thinks, yes, this is my master, yes. And because it's a superior intelligence there, the superior intelligence controls the lower intelligence. So this is what Prabhupada told his disciples when they exited that zoo. So being with Prabhupada and learning from him and seeing through his eyes is a completely new discovery. But whatever Prabhupada said, whatever he was preaching, was always in a mood of serving the mission of his spiritual master. The mission is essentially simple. Someone to connect everybody to Krishna. And once you are connected to somebody in a mood of service, or service means a mission. A servant has always a mission. He's on the mission. The master goes, bring this, he brings that. Goes, go there and get this, he gets that. He's practically all the time on the mission. In the old houses, they had always servants. They had this big bell, Actually, every room had a bell. So you could pull, on this. And there was usually a whole system, connection of ropes, which ring in a servant's quarters or the servant room. And a few seconds later, he was at the door. Yes, sir, what can I do? What do you need? Please bring me this. That's the mood. That's the mood. And it is reported that sometimes the servants were so loyal, they were practically members of the family. Not only that, but they became such a dear members of the family that when the children of the rich man degraded and became debauchees and went off and offended even the father due to the presence of so much money, well, as a reward, when the father died, they found in a testament that the whole house and property goes to the servant. Sometimes it was a really shock. What? What did he do? That old stupid fool. No, because it was such a connection there. The loyalty was rewarded. So this is actually the mood of devotional service. This whole independent ideas, even in a frame of preaching, we can invent so many things. I can demonstrate you from Prabhupada's letters what ideas he encountered. Like a whole group of Indian gentlemen from Kurukshetra wanted to open a film studios, to make movies about Krishna. Sounds great, to have a really film studios in Kurukshetra and produce movies about Krishna. Sounds great. Prabhupada didn't encourage them to do this. He said it's too much endeavor, too much money being spent, and the result is very mediocre. And he said, and finally, people will always take such a movie as entertainment. They will not take it that seriously as they should. But, like example, when Prabhupada had devotees joining who were already making movies, like, Yadubara and Shinananda, they were professionals. Prabhupada said, yeah, why not? Make a movie. And they made quite good movies when you see all these old movies, about ISKCON, and it's quite well done. So that wasn't the problem. But Prabhupada said, don't endeavor too much. He said priorities, what he wants us to do. There are so many things we can do, or we can try to do. Prabhupada said priorities. That was very clear. Book distribution, book production, book distribution, above all. I can read you a whole series of letters. He said, devotees in the early days, there were not that many devotees. And they had a temple already with deities. And then I said, Prabhupada, so many people joining, we are struggling to maintain the temple. We cannot go out and distribute books, we cannot go on Harinam so much. Prabhupada said, then close down the temple. Just close, not close down, finish it up, but, put the deities at rest and go out. That should never stop. Of course, it's kind of an extreme situation. We try not to do this. But when it came down to priorities, Prabhupada made it very clear, this is the priority. Outdoor preaching, that was Harinam, and book distribution. That book distribution took over then completely because Prabhupada stressed that book is more lasting kirtan. People take book home. But he also never discouraged the chanting in itself. So many things one can do in this field alone. Then comes the prasadam distribution, and then comes, anything what makes people to remember Krishna. And then the devotees came up with balloons in the sky, with Hare Krishna Maha Mantra, and Prabhupada said, yeah, this is nice, but how much does it cost? It costs a lot, such a balloon, and Prabhupada said, it's not proportionally to our income. We have only this budget, so when we have only this kind of money, then we can spend it always for that, what is more ranking on a higher level and priorities. There has to be priorities, all the time. So, so this is what Prabhupada was teaching us all the time, and this was what he did himself. It's amazing, isn't it? The first devotee he met